Please, we just need a job. No one wanted to hire these 3 poor alien widows, except one human. The desert wind kicked up dust around the old roadside cafe as Marcus wiped down the counter for what felt like the 100th time that morning. The chrome surface gleamed under the flickering fluorescent lights, a small point of pride in an otherwise deteriorating establishment. Through the smudged windows, he could see the highway stretching endlessly in both directions, empty as it had been for months. Business had dried up when they'd built the new interstate 20 miles east. Now the only customers were lost travelers and the occasional trucker who preferred the old routes. Marcus didn't mind the quiet, though. At 63, with a bad knee and no family to speak of, this little cafe was all he had left in the world. The bell above the door chimed, and Marcus looked up from his endless cleaning. 3 figures stood silhouetted in the doorway, backlit by the harsh afternoon sun. As they stepped inside, Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. They were Verdanian. He recognized them from the news broadcasts, refugees from the war that had devastated their homeworld 3 years ago. But these 3 were unlike any he'd seen on television. Their skin was a deep emerald green, and their long silver-white hair fell past their shoulders. They wore simple, worn clothing that hung loosely on their thin frames, and their large eyes held a desperate, haunted look that Marcus knew all too well. The tallest of the 3 stepped forward, her movements careful and measured, as if she expected to be struck at any moment. "Please," she said, her voice soft but clear, with only the slightest accent. "We're looking for work. Any work. We can clean, we can cook, we can serve. We need something." Marcus set down his cleaning rag, studying the 3 women. The one who'd spoken appeared to be the eldest, perhaps in her 30s by human standards, though he knew Verdanians aged differently. The other 2 stood slightly behind her, their expressions a mixture of hope and fear. "Where are you coming from?" Marcus asked, not unkindly. "Phoenix," the woman replied. "We have been walking for 2 days. We have asked at every establishment along this road. No one will hire us." She paused, her green hands clasping together nervously. "We are widows. Our husbands died in the war. We have 3 children between us, waiting at the refugee center. They are hungry." Marcus had heard the stories. The Verdanian War had left countless women without husbands, without homes, without anything. Earth had agreed to take in refugees, but integration had been difficult. People were afraid, suspicious, or simply unwilling to help those who looked so different. "I've been turned away from 47 places," the woman continued, her voice breaking slightly. "They see our skin, our eyes, and they say no. Some don't even let us finish asking." One man threw water at Mara. She gestured to the youngest of the 3, who looked away, shame coloring her cheeks a darker shade of green. Marcus leaned against the counter, his weathered hands gripping the edge. He thought of his own daughter, dead now for 15 years from cancer. He thought of how desperate he'd been back then, how he would have done anything, taken any job, begged anyone for help if it meant saving her. He'd failed then, but maybe he didn't have to fail now. "Can you start tomorrow?" he asked quietly. The 3 women stared at him in stunned silence. The eldest's eyes widened, filling with tears that shimmered like mercury in the fluorescent light. You will hire us?" she whispered, as if saying it too loudly might break the spell. "I can't pay much," Marcus admitted, running a hand through his thinning gray hair. "Business isn't what it used to be. But I can offer minimum wage, and you can take home any leftover food at the end of each shift. There's a small apartment upstairs that's been empty for years. It's not fancy, but it's clean and dry. You and your kids can stay there. No rent." The woman's legs seemed to give out, and she sank to her knees, pressing her forehead to the worn linoleum floor. The other two followed suit, their shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Please get up," Marcus said, uncomfortable with the display. "It's not charity. I actually do need help around here. Place is falling apart, and I'm getting too old to manage it all alone." The eldest woman rose slowly, tears streaming down her green cheeks. "I am Zara," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "This is my sister-in-law Mara, and this is Kessa, my husband's cousin. We will work hard for you. Harder than anyone has ever worked. We promise you this." "I'm Marcus," he replied, extending his hand. "And I believe you." Zara took his hand carefully, as if it were made of glass. Her skin was cooler than human skin, smooth and slightly textured. "Why?" she asked, searching his face. "Why would you help us when no one else would?" Marcus thought about that for a moment, looking past the three women to the empty highway beyond. "Because someone should have helped me once and no one did," he said finally. "Because being alone and desperate is the worst feeling in the world. And because you walked 2 days through the desert to find work, and that tells me more about your character than the color of your skin ever could." That evening, Marcus drove the three women back to the refugee center in his old pickup truck. The children, 2 boys and a girl, all under the age of 10, greeted their mothers with squeals of joy. Their small faces, the same emerald green as their mothers, lit up when they heard about the job and the apartment. The next morning, Zara, Mara, and Kessa arrived at sunrise. Marcus showed them around the cafe, teaching them how to work the grill, the coffee maker, the register. They learned quickly, asking questions and taking mental notes. The children sat quietly in a corner booth, coloring on paper napkins, never once complaining. Within a week, something remarkable began to happen. The cafe started to change. Zara reorganized the kitchen with ruthless efficiency. Mara, it turned out, had been a chef on Verdania and brought recipes that transformed the menu. Kessa had a talent for making people feel welcome, her gentle smile putting even the most skeptical customers at ease. Word began to spread about the little cafe on the old highway where the food was unexpectedly excellent and the service warm. People started making the detour, curious about the Verdanian cooking and staying for the genuine hospitality. 1 month later, Marcus stood behind the counter, watching as Zara's son laughed at something one of the regular customers said. The bell above the door chimed constantly now, and the parking lot that had been empty for so long was full of cars. Zara approached him, wiping her hands on her apron. "Thank you," she said simply. "You saved our lives." Marcus shook his head. "You saved your own lives by not giving up. I just gave you a chance." He paused, then added, "Besides, you saved mine too. This place was dying. You brought it back to life." As the evening rush began, Marcus watched his unusual family move through the cafe with practiced ease. They'd been strangers from different worlds, but desperation and kindness had forged something stronger than blood. In helping them, he'd found purpose again. In trusting him, they'd found home. Sometimes, Marcus thought, the bravest thing you can do is say yes when everyone else says no.